Welcome everyone to episode 22 of the What Sales and Marketing Got to Do with It podcast. My name is Gemma Adair, founder and principal marketing consultant at Riata Consultancy. This podcast aims to delve deep into the minds of sales and marketing industry leaders, uncovering what keeps them up at night, what drives their passion, and how they execute successful strategies both in their personal and professional lives. I'm delighted to welcome Hayley Brace. She works as a marketing director at Pixeled Eggs. Great to have you, Hayley.
Really pleased to be here, Gemma. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Ah, awesome. I see you've got two very furry friends there. Tell us more about them.
Yeah, this is Ziggy and Boo. No networking call with me is complete without them. They just sit here, super affectionate, 14 years old this year, and sometimes they'll give you a motivational stare as well.
Nice. I can see, yeah, I can see. She's giving me a stare there for sure. I'm feeling the eyes on me, the prizing eyes on me. So please introduce who you are and what you do.
So I'm Hayley Brace. I'm marketing director at Pixeled Eggs. I've got over 20 years experience in agency and client side roles. And in particular, Pixeled Eggs are a purpose-driven website agency specializing in charities, non-profits, and B Corp companies.
Perfect. No, that's great. And tell us more. When and where did your marketing journey begin?
My marketing journey began quite at an early age. So I studied marketing. I did a degree in advertising and marketing communications. I kind of followed in my father's footsteps. He had been VP of marketing for Nokia and Vodafone, had some really kind of big global roles. And when I was doing my GCSEs, I wanted to either get into marketing, design, or web. And I wasn't able to do design and technology as a GCSE because my woodwork and metalwork skill weren't up to scratch. So I couldn't do graphic design. And I decided, you know what? If I go into marketing, I can either be involved in those areas that I really enjoy and like, or I can make that step sideways into that area.
Perfect. You'll be happy to know I did graphic design, yeah, for at school, which was really,
Nice.
really fun. Yeah, that was one of my favorite classes, graphic
Yeah,
design. And I did a bit of woodwork as well. Yeah, I remember doing some
yeah.
woodwork as well.
Yeah, like we're talking like I'm going way back where
Yeah.
like I really enjoyed the graphic design part of it. I was really good at the graphic design, but we were using rulers and pencils. We weren't using
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, memories.
Showing our age.
Which brings me on to my next question with regards to marketing. Have you faced any marketing challenges um from working in marketing? Um, what were they and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so my challenges that I've faced in my career in marketing, there's kind of two really. So one is personal to myself, imposter syndrome, self-doubt, kind of
Hmm.
those real kind of limiting self-beliefs and thoughts. And I think, I've had to learn to just trust in yourself and really kind of respect and value what you're doing. And I think everybody, to some extent during their life, suffers from imposter syndrome. And then the other challenge that I think I faced in marketing is experience, to be honest, like not necessarily when you first start out and getting those first crucial years of marketing experience. That I was very lucky to always kind of have some amazing people I was working with, a lot of support and growth. But actually, in terms of marketing, is so covers such broad depth of areas and skill sets. And sometimes you've got those areas where you're not as strong in. I'm quite a generalist marketer. So, I'm not a specialist in that area, and they wanted someone who was specialist, or they wanted someone that had that real kind of experience. So sometimes that has been a bit of a challenge for me, but also has been a great opportunity, I think, is what has led me to be a marketing director today, is being a generalist, having that broad experience has meant that I'm able to now kind of pull in various expertise and play quite a depth and varied role.
It's very interesting. You talk about, generalist and so on. In your experience, do you think it's what you know, not who you know, or is it who you know, not what you know? Some people use that kind of like, oh, it's who you know, it's not what you know.
I think it's a mixture. I think it's a mixture
Mm,
and it really does vary, So um, I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't be where I am today if it hadn't been for who had kind of supported me, who'd lift me up, who'd kind of helped and trusted and valued in me. But also, what I know has helped me to build that respect and value with those people. So I think the two actually go hand in hand.
definitely. Which brings me to being a marketing director. Phew, a lot goes on, I'm sure, within that role, day to day. So take us through, what does a day in the life of Hayley look like? It can be from when you get up in the morning to when you kind of finish your day. What does that look like? Cats and all. Tell us
Cats
more.
and all, dogs and all, yeah. So I'm quite an active person, and I get up early, so I'm out in the morning at about 6:15, 6:30 with the dogs, walking in the local woods. I've always been one of those people. I can't just start my day and, just get on with work. I have to have almost a bit of a day before I even start. So
Yeah.
typically I'll get up, I'll walk the dogs, I'll come back, I'll either have cleaned the house, go to the gym, read a book, just really have a bit of a kind of me time before starting work. And then the working day, it's one of those classic, it's no one day is the same, every day is different. But typically I will come in, do a bit of networking, catch up on my community, see what's going on with the B Corp world and the charity world. I can be doing anything from kind of strategy through to day-to-day social media and managing of our account. I'm a one-woman team in our marketing. And it's just really enjoyable, really just, yeah, I'll just be doing anything and everything. And I love it.
Nice. Interesting. Is there a part of marketing that you like the most and that you like the least, perhaps? And could you talk about that?
Yeah, so there are kind of three areas that I enjoy the most about marketing. The first off is brand, visual, communications. I I just love it. I love graphic design. I love the creative side of it. Um, I actually don't think I would have been a great creative because I'm more able to shape and see and kind of direct that
Mm,
visual look and feel. I did my dissertation on semiotics in the visual branded world, which was all about how we see, understand, and our cultural values around imagery and what we're
mm,
using and our language. And within that as well, I really enjoy accessible design. I do believe that good design is accessible. So making sure it's inclusive, making sure that everybody can understand it, whatever their accessibility needs are. Web design, web development, I always had a passion for that. And, my biggest kind of almost best career advice when I, said to myself, oh, I either want to do one of these. Well, now I'm marketing director working for a web design and development agency. And then in terms of what I like least, it's a tricky one because it's so broad and depth in marketing. Um, and I'm quite a creative and a logical thinker all at the same time. So
okay.
one of the things I think I like least is sometimes it can be quite lonely in marketing.
Mm,
Um, and sometimes I'm not all about the processes, and you don't need to be all about processes, but also I'm quite a kind of organized, structured person. So there's some kind of,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, I think what I like least is sometimes it can be a little bit lonely.
Right. Being within the role and you being that sort of go-to for everything and everything within the
But
business.
I quite like being the go-to for everything and everything.
Okay.
It's more that, as an agency,
Mm,
team are so busy on the client work that like it's getting that time and attention, and I just get energy from people. So
Nice.
yeah, it's more that as a team of one, it's yeah, that's how it can be quite lonely sometimes.
What was the experience like? Obviously, within this role, it's an agency, web agency. What was it like from your other sort of roles in marketing that you've kind of experienced previously in perhaps larger sort of company?
Yeah. Um, Well, interestingly, I was our client before becoming over to our being our
Ah,
marketing director.
interesting, right.
So I'd actually worked with us for 3 years before making the move, and had a very informal discussion with our team about what could a move look like. Um, I think the differences are, and there are also similarities, because I am the marketing team in our agency. So what I really like about the agency world and marketing is the pace, the variations, the opportunity to really kind of work and own and autonomously. You know, if there's something you enjoy and you want to do, you can just get on and do it. And I think the differences are the the team size, you know, being able to call on different people and experts, but that's something that I can do, you know, with other people. It doesn't have to be within my own organization.
Definitely leverage different sort of partnerships, collaborations, third
Yeah.
parties, and so on. Definitely. What do you think are, you talked about, you kind of, the creative side of marketing, and then there's like the processes and having structure and so on and so forth. From your experience, what do you think are the misconceptions do people have about marketing?
Yeah. So the misconceptions, I think that people think like, and I think some of this is changing a lot in the last few years. Um, you know, people often think it's marketing's easy, it's common sense, you know, everybody, you know, like it's just they don't understand the depth that goes into marketing. Um, and I see that shifting of recent. I see people starting to really value and understand the marketing role across organizations, and, you know, what we can bring together. Yeah, I think that's kind of what I would say is some of the biggest kind of misconceptions I've seen of marketing.
Gotcha. And do you think it depends on seniority within an organization? Do you think there's sort of we're making sort of progress there in terms of like, do you think it's an education thing, just kind of that whole education piece about informing them what marketing is, what we do and what we can bring, like as a collective, essentially?
Yeah, I think it's that importance of strategically understanding marketing and representing it. It's also our ability now to be able to kind of demonstrate and show return on investment,
Yeah.
and just demonstrate that it's not all fluffy. It's not, you know, that it does add value, that it builds relations and the interconnections between departments.
Definitely. Which probably brings me to my next question, quite a vital question when you talk about interconnection between departments. What's your take? I mean, I've said this on all podcasts. I'm a firm believer of sales and marketing alignment. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I I am a firm believer in that as well. I think the two go hand in hand. I think, you know, it's so important to have that sales and marketing working collaboratively together, but also understanding their differences, and, you know, how they are their own entities and their own functions. Um, and I think that, again, there's I'm seeing a more of kind of connection between sales and marketing of recent, where
Yeah.
um, there's a more kind of relationship being built, a more understanding of how, you know, marketing is, you know, the creation of those relationships, the starting of that journey, the thinking of that kind of experience, and how customers and users are starting off their work, and then the importance of that kind of quality lead for the sales
Mm.
team to start to convert, to build, and to, you know, have created the right brief for that client.
Definitely. And I think as well, thrown into that is, it's different characters, different ways that people work, different ways that people sell, how they relate to their customers and how we can support them the best way in doing that. So I think on one hand, it's getting them the right leads, getting them, top of funnel, making sure that they convert to opportunities and so on. But it's also just trying to understand them as individuals, as sales, and vice versa on our side. Them understanding us as marketing professionals.
Yeah. Yeah, and you touched on a really important part there in terms of the individuals and how they are. And you do get those different types of approaches to sales and marketing, and they have to be working in synergy. Like if you've got a very cold calling type, salesperson, that's not necessarily going to work with somebody who's doing, the marketing time. It can take a long time, and you need to be talking to 100% of that market.
Mm.
And those two aren't gonna kind of work together. But there are marketing approaches and marketing types that will work with the more kind of cold calling approach. So it's just, yeah, you've got to make sure those relationships, those personalities, and those functions are kind of working together in that way.
Definitely. And, separate to nurturing prospects and customers and so on, we also have to nurture those relationships internally as well and work together and collaborate and so on. Um, how do you stay up to date with the market? And that's in terms of marketing, plus also because you are an agency within the not-for-profit charity sort of sector. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, and this is something that I think in my early stages of my career, I didn't do enough of. Um, I kind of almost went, I finished university now, let's go. Like, yeah. And it's something that I really value, and I think that people should make sure they are doing and keeping on top of, like staying up to date. For me, I podcasts, I love a good podcast. I'll go out for a nice walk, I'll listen to them, I'll tune in. Audiobooks and like printed books as well. Sometimes I really enjoy just listening to the audiobook and then actually reading the book as a physical book as well. I just find I kind
Okay.
of take it in. Articles from, Marketing Week into charity comms. Yeah, it's for me, it's podcasts, it's audiobooks, and it's blogs. Um, and I think that the other thing that I would say is that in recent years, those sources have started to become a lot more trusted as well.
Mm.
That a lot more people are sharing that expertise and experience in the blogs and the content they're writing, rather than just trying to sell or just kind of keep it all on their one angle and focus.
Gotcha. Which makes a hell of a lot of sense. Yeah, from kind of gaining those kind of insights and nuggets, um, for sure. Um, again, with you mentioned podcasts. You mentioned earlier, you start the day with a walk. You like to kind of take that time to yourself. Work-life balance is probably an overused sort of term. Probably need to call it something else now. But how do you create that balance in your life? It seems that you do have a great balance. You start the day, have that time for yourself. Tell us more about how you create that, or are conscious about, kind of work and life and all of that.
Yeah, and this is something that sometimes I'm good at, and sometimes I need to kind of practice what I preach a little bit more.
Yeah.
People have those times. Um, and is one of the reasons actually I changed my roles last year, is I realized that work-life balance is not about the divide between home and work. Work-life balance is doing something that you enjoy, that gives you energy, that you feel valued for doing, that then inspires you to do more outside of work, to make sure where you're spending your time and what you're doing. And also it's about thinking, like just reminding yourself every now and again that you're not productive without taking a break, without taking time for
Mm.
you and investing in yourself. I always say to the team, like, um, if what you spend 2 hours doing tonight, you're not actually doing your best work on that. If you actually take the time this evening or you take that break, then you come back in the morning, that might only take you half an hour or an hour. You're just going to be much more focused. So it's that importance of taking a break, taking time, and just resting is just vital, I think.
Mm. And then you spoke there now about doing what inspires you. What would you say you're passionate about and what drives you?
Yeah, so this is a really good question, and I know it's one that sometimes throws some people. Um, I always think of it like what gives me energy. And for me, I just get a lot of energy from people. I get a lot of energy from community. I really enjoy just doing something that I love, getting enjoyment, being authentic, and yeah, it just marketing and doing something I understand as well.
Yeah, which is interesting because um like in terms of like you talk about community and being around people and so on. My next question would be to you, is there somebody that inspires you, whether dead or alive?
Yeah, and I quite liked what Manesh did in one of your recent podcasts, where
Hmm.
he actually described the type of person that inspires him.
Inspires him.
And I have an answer to both. So,
Okay, go for it.
um,
Yeah.
the who has inspired me or kind of role models during my career. My dad, I mentioned him earlier, he's one of them. Just absolutely amazing man. Like he's able to kind of balance that family life, that approach, that really doing some amazing work, and what he's done. I just always admire him. I've got a really good friend, Annette, who's also been a colleague. We're just each other's like wise women and cheerleaders. Um, like, oh, gosh, there's so many people that inspire me. Like one of my original university lecturers who had got agency experience and consultancy. Um, and he just gets the best out of people. He sees their opportunities and what they're good at, which leads me into like the type of person that
Mm,
inspires me are those people that are able to see the best in people, able to get the best out of them. They have a really good kind of approach, very strategic. They have a good balance and focus on what they're doing, and they're just enjoying what they do.
that makes sense. A lot of sense in that. If you were to think back of all of what you know now, and you could, let's say, speak to your younger self, what would you say to them?
So there's two things that are very contradicting to each other in this. So one is I would, on one side, kind of say like, don't change what you're doing, like, be yourself. The challenges that you face, and that I faced, I've learned from them, and I grow from them. So I wouldn't necessarily change what I'm doing, but I would say to my younger self that, you're gonna face challenges, you're gonna face, situations that are
Mm,
difficult, and learn from those. You grow from those, they feel difficult as you're going through them. I would say to my younger self, like, don't overthink, don't overcomplicate. Um, and also, where I was going with that, not overthinking, is to just sometimes just get on and do it, just
Mm,
um not strive for perfection.
that makes a lot of sense. Because I think the more you think about something, you procrastinate, you overthink it, imposter syndrome kicks in, and all of that
Yeah, you
crazy
hold
stuff.
yourself back. You kind of stop yourself from doing it because you don't think you're going to do a good enough job. But starting something is better than doing nothing, and then at least you can get the feedback. And yeah, yeah. So
Definitely. We
yeah.
we we tell ourselves all kinds of stories, right?
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of them are stories that are in your head, and you only know what you know, and the rest you kind of make up. And yes, just don't make assumptions. You never know what someone has, what's happened to them earlier in the day, or what's going on outside of that. So just, you know what you know, but the rest you make up.
Definitely. Which out of interest, what did you want to be? Or what sort of profession, or what did you want to be when you grew up?
Um, when I was very young, I wanted to be, like a vet nurse or work with animals and stuff. Um, but then I think I've always just wanted to work in marketing. I, like I I wanted to be either graphic design, web development, or marketing. Um, but I just always wanted to be in marketing. Yeah, and I remember doing that, like it was like 100 question quiz that came back and gave you career advice on where you were best
Yes.
approached. And actually that came back as marketing as one of my top things. Or it was like marketing, web development, or graphic design. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's all of the things I wanted to be.
Yes. The quiz or whatever it was is
Yeah,
right, it's correct.
yeah.
Where can you see yourself in 5 years' time?
I am not someone that has a big grand plan, or, I always just kind of go with it and go with the flow. But I'm also a kind of very loyal person. I started at Pixeled Eggs in like 7 months ago. So in 5 years' time, I'd love to still be here. I'd love to have kind of built a team, grown the agency. And yeah, I love the team that I'm working with. I love the clients that we're working with. When I made the decision to come over to agency side, I knew I didn't want to be working for any agency. And so being able to work with some amazing causes that are just changing and impacting on lives and telling that story was something that made me want to work for us. So I just love to still be where I am doing what I'm doing, but have grown the team and working in an amazing way.
That's great. And I think I can from what you're saying and throughout the podcast, it's a real kind of sense of purposely led in not just as an agency, but also what you're doing from a marketing standpoint. Like you said, just kind of sharing the stories and positioning them in a great way to kind of get that across to the
Yeah, and
audience.
purpose is a great topic because
Mm,
um, purpose means different things to different people. And
yes.
you've kind of hit on it there in the two meanings actually, that there is purpose-led and purpose-driven organizations like B Corps that are working, balancing, profit with people and planet. They're working in great ways and doing great things. And they are purpose-driven. But then there is also making sure as an individual that you're working with your purpose, your values,
Yes.
and yeah, and I'm in that kind of happy place where I'm doing both types of purpose, which is great.
That's fine. What do you want to be remembered by?
That's a really good question. I wasn't doing a lot of kind of networking or community before my current role, and something that I have started to realize as I've been doing more network and community is just I love adding value. I love connecting people. Like I'll make a connection, and it's not kind of in a new biz or growth way. And I
Mm,
just love seeing it become a result. Like when I connect two people together and they're like, oh, thank you so much, like we're doing business together, or we've formed a great relationship or a great partnership. So yeah, just adding value and connecting dots.
Because it's not that hard in that sense, just to kind of introduce someone to someone else. And I mean, it can be magic, absolute magic,
Yeah.
what can create from that sort of connection.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's I I will always double check before I make sure with both people. So I'll always say to them, do you mind if I've got a contact that I think would be really valuable for you. Do you mind if I make a connection? And then I will reach out to that other person as well, rather than just kind of getting that one person's consent. Because sometimes like, I don't know, they follow up too much or they just might not have wanted that connection.
that's yeah. And I think as well with that kind of approach, it pays dividends in marketing as well when you're kind of liaising with multiple sort of stakeholders and internal and external to the business. I think what marketing does teach you, or the skills that you learn from working in marketing, is about sort of bridging the gap between people, kind of
Yeah.
bringing people together and making suggestions on, how, and ideas on how people can network and collaborate and expand their knowledge and grow and so on. So I do think, yeah, it's one of the amazing things about marketing, right? Working in marketing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also about just understanding people. Like marketing is ultimately about
Mm,
understanding people,
understanding people. Yeah.
making sure that it's relevant, making sure that you're user-centric.
Mm,
People are at the
hard.
front of everything with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. User centric, people centric. It's definitely, I think, definitely key.
Yeah.
If you had the chance to be a superhero, Hayley the superhero, or have some kind of superpower, who would that be? Or what superpower would that be and why?
I have always wanted to be able to teleport. Like I have
Cool.
always said, like, why can't I just like ping and I'm in Spain for tapas for lunch? Or, like, oh, I forgot that. Let me just go home and grab it, like just kind of
Yeah.
removing the time needed for travel. Though I do enjoy travel. Like when I commute, I do enjoy being able to like tuck into a good book and just sit down and get into it. Um, and I would also say the two that I wouldn't want is to be invincible and to be able
Mm,
to mind read, because I wouldn't want, like, what goes on behind closed doors or conversations about me or thoughts, what sometimes they just, I just wouldn't want to know.
no. No, that's actually a very valid point. Oh, yeah, what you don't know, it's fine. Leave it there, type
Yeah,
thing. Yeah. If you had to ask the audience a question, what would that be?
I would ask them two questions. So,
Oh,
yeah.
cool. Go for it.
They are very similar.
Okay.
So one, what gives you energy? And two, um, what's the most exciting project you're working on right now?
Mm. Would you say if a project is not exciting, then maybe have a think about it?
It doesn't
Review.
necessarily need to be a project. Like what's the most exciting thing you're doing right now? And then that kind of links into their kind of enjoyment and stuff because um it's it's a very kind of people focused question. It's very much kind of,
Mm,
yeah, that's why they're quite interlinked because what
yeah,
gives you energy is normally what you're enjoying.
definitely. No, it's very, very, very good. Two questions. Be interesting to see what comes up, or what it sort of provokes some thought um in people watching the podcast. So that's great. Do you have any final words that you would like to share?
Yes. So I would say to make sure that you are genuine and authentic. Be open and honest, and don't be afraid of, sharing vulnerabilities, and, make sure you just learn from the
Mm,
challenges that you face.
that's really good. I think vulnerability is a key one there for sure. Um, but just want to say thank you so much, Hayley, for coming onto the podcast. I know we've connected because of our network, you know, which has been absolutely amazing. I know our relationship is going to continue.
Yes.
We're just going to grow and flourish, and I think that's why I love connecting and networking with people. Um, and thank you for your insights, your nuggets. Thank you for being vulnerable yourself. Um, and yeah, have a good day.
Thank you, Gemma.
No
Yeah.
problem. Take
Yeah.
care.
See
Bye.
you later.